Everybody ready?
One more minute.
Courage under fire. Valor. You're going to hear the details of what took place in Clio City on Tuesday, March 26th, around 7:35 p.m. But before we do that, I want to tell you about 3 deputies and one of your patrol officers. Every officer in the country trains on the force continuum. What force we use to maintain order, to control a scene, and the ultimate decision is deadly force. A decision, although we're all trained to do it, is the last option. And in many times, we were able to de-escalate. But there are those moments where deadly force is the only option. And Deputy Kern, Deputy Gorman, Deputy Benner, and your officer exercised courage and valor when deadly force had to be used. You're going to see video. You're going to see body cam footage. You're going to hear a 911 call. And you're going to hear what these officers did at this scene after 2 people had already been shot and killed. The suspect, who will also be identified, was an active shooter. The people around in the Clio community were calling 911 in total terror. They were barricaded in their house, blinds shut, windows closed, lights off. But these officers and what happened that scene is one that can only be recognized by courage. So on that day, Tuesday, March 26th, Clio City, who's led by Chief Wendell Milstead next to me, responded to a domestic violence with shots fired. Around 7:37, this is all happening. Now, there had been another disturbance that law enforcement was not called to. Earlier in the day, there was an argument between 2 domestic partners, but that accelerated to the point where around 7:37, when this transpired, the suspect, Eric Bennett, had a shotgun, and as one of the victims was on a phone to his mother, took his life, shot him multiple times with a shotgun. Another individual that we're going to respect the family's wishes and not show her picture, Casey Geip, she came to investigate, and she too was murdered by the suspect. Ronnie Tatro and Casey Geip did not deserve what happened to them. And when somebody is committed to taking another person's life, that is the definition of an active shooter, especially with multiple victims. These aren't barricaded gunmen. These aren't hostages. This is somebody who had already made the decision to take a human life. When your officer came on scene and engaged with Bennett, Deputy Kern and Deputy Gorman, Deputy Benner showed up just within a minute or 2 after that. In the presence of mind that as Bennett is being ordered to put the gun down, he's breaking out glass of the apartment at 619 Mill Street. And as he's being given orders, he engages the officers. Multiple shots fired. In fact, the Michigan State Police Crime Lab recovered 13 shotgun shell casings. 13. You're going to see how in this northbound view that Deputy Benner has the presence of mind, seeing another car come southbound to say, we need to shut down at Farron Road so nobody gets into crossfire. At the same time, giving orders with your officer to maintain control and to put the weapon down. You're also going to see in just a few minutes body cam footage of Deputy Benner giving 17 commands, who now, with Bennett in the middle of the road to put the gun down, is arguing back and forth with the officers saying, take the shot. And they're replying back, I'm not going to take the shot, over and over, trying to de-escalate, to the point in time where the shotgun used, not only on the victims, was also pointed to the Clio City officer. This is that shotgun in the middle of the street. The next still photo that you will see is Bennett raising that gun up towards the Clio officer. The next still photo you'll see is the muzzle flash. Now, we had multiple calls come into 911. And one of those calls was from a bystander, a neighbor, who's across the street on the east side. I want you to hear and see what's happening within the neighborhood and listen to the tone of the caller and how calm the 911 dispatcher is. Here's that call. You can hear the fear in that caller's voice. That's what's happening around the scene. It's a dynamic scene. At the same time, those deputies and that officer engage Bennett in the middle of the street. Multiple times after being told to put the gun down, he makes a decision, because he's already killed 2 people, shot multiple times with a shotgun, to raise that firearm to your officer and pull the trigger in an attempt to kill a police officer. A third, in addition to what is happening, but a third victim. And that's where those 3 deputies and your officer returned fire. You're going to hear the voice commands from a body cam footage taken from Deputy Benner of how many times he told Bennett to put the gun down. And I want you to hear his voice and hear the tone in his voice. Here's that footage. That's the kind of law enforcement we have in this community. Deputy Benner has 9 years on the job. Sarah Kern has 5 years. Deputy Gorman has less than 2 years. Just got out of the police academy. In fact, after the shooting, Deputy Kern and her partners and the Clio officers converge to make sure that the suspect is contained, and they secure the weapon. And immediately Deputy Kern runs back to her car, because she and Gorman are licensed paramedics, runs back to her car within 60 seconds, starts performing life-saving maneuvers, CPR, a Lucas compression device, chest seals, IV therapy, tried to intubate, laying flat on the ground after she just pulled the trigger to the same person that's trying to kill them in order to render aid. Gorman does the same thing, transported to early hospital by Deputy Welch. At the same time that's happening, not knowing the status of the two victims inside that are already deceased, that's the presence of mind that we're talking about when these fatal situations happen. And as soon as Bennett was suppressed, the scene was over. And the reason we've waited to the point that we are right now is to gather all the details and to lay the story out and to thank the people that made that evening not only safe, but also investigating it in a way that tells the story. There are no more suspects that we believe that are involved in this killing. We have two individuals. As I said, one was on the phone to his mother. I want Ronnie Tatrell's family to know that we're going to be with you. And that to the mother, can you imagine being on the phone when you're talking and knowing that your son is getting murdered? And to Casey's family, we're going to respect your honor and your wishes not to put your sister's photo out there. Here's a 51-year-old that lives in the same complex that just goes to investigate and is shot multiple times. There's a number of things that happen in a scene like this, and there's a lot more to do. We have autopsies that were done today. We have State Police Crime Lab reports, but I've asked to do this joint operation like we did some time ago when another deputy and a Burton officer were involved in a shooting, and Deputy Facting was shot himself. And we work really well with local law enforcement, and that's the situation we have now. Chief Milstead is a veteran law enforcement professional within this community in Flint Police Department, and even with this office. And we want to thank some people. And I'd like to turn over to Chief Wendell Milstead of Clio PD.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'd like to just briefly, if I could, number one, commend both my city officer and the deputies involved for their courage, their dedication, and their calm and cool under fire. The risk that they put themselves to is something that the average person will never understand. I would also like to thank the city of Clio and the greater Clio community and the county for their support, their outreach to the agencies involved, showing that they are concerned about both the welfare of the city and the greater community. I would like to thank the sheriff and his dedicated staff, the Michigan State Police and the State Police Crime Lab, and all the brave men and women from the agencies across the county that responded. We cannot thank you enough from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, Chief. We'd also like to thank Montrose, Mount Moore City, Genesee Township, and Flint City Police Departments that came and helped secure the scene with us. As I said, this whole thing lasted from about 7:35 till about 7:43, and it was over that fast. Now, again, we try to be as transparent as we can with the public and the media. We're going to open up for questions, but there's some limited information that I can give, and that time is now. I'm live.
Are any of these officers, because they were involved in shooting, on leave at this point?
So the question is, are the officers on leave? I don't know about the Clio City officer.
Our city officer is on paid administrative leave at this time per protocol.
So our three deputies, people handle things different. And so we have a protocol in place that we provide support services, counseling services. Our entire command staff wraps our arms around these individuals. We communicate with their families. And sometimes they need more time than others. And so because we have three involved, they are on leave and they're not having to take extra vacation hours. We're going to give them what time they need in order to also put their lives back together. As I said in the beginning, deadly force is an option. It's not the option any officer in the country want to take. And when that happens, imagine, and I have never taken someone's life. So I can't say that I know what it is after 31 years. But there's others that have, and we're talking about three of them. And I think it's important that we give them the time to process what's happened and allow them to come back and to perform their duties. And they will. Of those three, their fathers and mothers, their husbands and wives, and their community members.
You mentioned the training, how crucial that was. Talk to me a little bit about how often your deputies train to make sure that they know what to do in situations like this one.
Mid-Michigan asked about training, and there is a protocol that the state, through what's called MCOs, requires us to qualify. But our firearms team, and I'm sure with Clio, we train 4 to 8 times minimum per year on not only weapon retention, but also, muzzle control and shot placement. You have residential areas that not every shot hit, that we have to account for. And thank God nobody else was injured on some of those crossfires. So we train rapidly. Our office, we train once a month. We have multiple mandatory trainings, but it's a lot of it's decision-making too. It's not just pulling a weapon and firing. It's shoot, don't shoot. I can tell you that most officers, 99% of the time that pull their weapon, do not shoot. It's an option we have, but they automatically de-escalate. And so not to use deadly force. But when you have somebody who's already killed 2 people that's engaging you and is arguing with the officer, take the shot. I'm not going to take the shot. Take the shot. There is no other option.
Do we know a motive, any connection to any of these people?
Yes, the ABC 12 talks about motive. We do know that Ronnie and Bennett were in a domestic relationship, and there was an argument, and there was a disturbance that happened just before. When Bennett came back into the house, he was locked out. He put multiple rounds through the door, was breaking glass, and eventually got in and killed Tatro in the bathroom. Yes, I'm live.
And then what was Geit's relationship with the other victim?
So Casey Geit lives in the same building and is friends with both subjects. And without obviously having any opportunity to talk, we can only assume because she knows them, she heard the disturbance, came down to investigate, and lost her life. Again, I want to thank Chief Milstead, the officers that responded, those 4 who had to make a decision, and also to the families of the victims. This is a traumatic, violent case. It doesn't define Clio City. It doesn't define this community. It was a domestic situation gone tragic, and that's the story. Thank you for coming.